Brisbane 2032, the $3 billion battle to build an Olympic city. Before a single athlete sets foot on Australian soil, an invisible war is already being fought across Brisbane. Geologists are battling ancient volcanic rock. Engineers are hauling millions of tons of earth from a hillside. A wild river is being built from nothing, and an entire suburb is being demolished to make way for 24,000 people who don't yet know they'll live there. This is not just an Olympic preparation story. This is the story of how a city remakes itself, and whether the price is worth paying. Let's get started. The problem. Every Olympic city faces the same impossible question. How do you build world-class venues fast enough for a fixed deadline without saddling taxpayers with white elephants for the next 50 years? Brisbane is attempting something ambitious, maybe recklessly so. The 2032 Games have been declared the most sustainable Olympics in history before a single foundation has been poured. They must be climate positive, meaning the entire project must remove more carbon from the atmosphere than it produces. That is an extraordinary promise to make about an event that requires building billions of dollars worth of concrete and steel across an entire metropolitan region. What follows is the story of 5 projects. Each one is remarkable on its own terms. Together, they tell you everything about what the Brisbane Games are actually trying to achieve. Victoria Park, fighting geology and gravity. The centerpiece of the Brisbane Games will be a brand new 63,000-seat stadium at Victoria Park. On paper, it is a beautiful site. Green, central, and directly accessible by public transport. In practice, it is one of the most geologically hostile pieces of ground in the city. The problem begins with the slope. From one end of the site to the other, the ground level changes by 35 meters. That is the equivalent of a 12-story building. Before a single seat can be installed, engineers must blast through a geological formation known as Brisbane Tuff, ancient volcanic rock that is harder than standard concrete, and construct retaining walls up to 20 meters high just to create a level base. The site's history makes this worse. Parts of Victoria Park were used as a rubbish dump. Other areas are naturally swampy, meaning the ground is unstable beneath the surface. Every ton of concrete that goes into the foundations will need to be supported by deep steel piles drilled into bedrock, anchoring the structure like the roots of a tree. Then there is the sustainability paradox. Building on a fresh green parkland site produces significantly more carbon than developing an old industrial area. The concrete alone required to tame this hillside carries a substantial emissions cost. To offset it, engineers must hit a 6-star Green Star rating, the highest sustainability certification in Australia, using low-emission materials, rainwater harvesting, and passive ventilation throughout. One proposal even suggested using renewable timber for 40% of the structure, which would have made it the world's largest timber-braced stadium. There is one more problem that rarely appears in the promotional renders. A 63,000-seat venue requires an enormous forecourt, a flat, open zone for queues, security screening, and crowd management. Experts estimate this alone requires the equivalent of 7 football fields of paved space. That is not shown in the artist's impressions of a beautiful stadium nestled among trees. The real footprint is considerably larger. Spring Hill, engineering water. 15 minutes from Victoria Park, a different kind of engineering challenge is taking shape. The National Aquatic Centre will rise on the site of the historic Centenary Pool in Spring Hill, and it will become the permanent national headquarters for all 4 of Australia's peak aquatic sports: swimming, diving, water polo, and artistic swimming. The pools themselves are impressive. A standard 50-meter Olympic competition pool will sit alongside a unique 65-meter indoor training pool, a length that allows a movable dividing wall, called a bulkhead, to simultaneously create separate training environments for different sports. A dedicated artistic swimming pool will be built to a depth of 3 meters, providing the clearance athletes need for underwater lifts and acrobatic sequences. Combined, these pools will hold enough water to fill more than 3 Olympic pools. The most dramatic feature is the 27-meter outdoor high dive tower, a platform the height of a 9-story building, and the first structure of its kind anywhere in the Southern Hemisphere. Engineering a stable platform at that height, one that can withstand Brisbane's wind conditions while supporting athletes preparing to launch themselves into open air, is a significant technical challenge. The venue's most important trick, however, is invisible. For most of the year, it will seat 8,800 people for national championships and community swimming. For the Olympics, it must hold 25,000. The solution is a massive temporary grandstand structure built inside the permanent building and then completely dismantled after the games conclude. It is, in effect, a stadium inside an aquatic center, built twice in the same space for two entirely different audiences. Chandler, building for the community first. 15 kilometers southeast of the city, a different philosophy is driving the third major project. The Chandler Sports Precinct was originally built for the 1982 Commonwealth Games. It is getting a $257 million transformation. But unlike the other venues, Chandler was not designed around the Olympics. It was designed around what Brisbane already needed. Community basketball participation in Queensland grew by 79% in just 2 years. Courts were already oversubscribed before anyone started talking about 2032. The Olympics provided the funding and the urgency, but the demand was real and pre-existing. The new Chandler Indoor Sports Center will deliver 10 multi-sport courts in its main hall and a 2,400 square meter gymnastics facility, larger than 6 professional basketball courts combined, in a dedicated second hall. Total capacity will reach 10,000 spectators. Crucially, construction is scheduled to finish in 2027, a full 5 years before the Games. Local clubs and residents will have half a decade of use before the Olympics arrive. The venue will also include a dedicated parasport facility, becoming a permanent training hub for the Australian wheelchair rugby team and other parathletes. That commitment to inclusion is built into the physical structure, not added as an afterthought. Redlands, building a wild river from nothing. For the canoe slalom competition, athletes need a turbulent, churning river, the kind of environment that can be precisely controlled, adjusted, and repeated across competition days. Nature cannot provide that, so engineers will build it instead. The Redland Whitewater Center will be an artificial river, a concrete channel between 200 and 400 meters long, fed by a pump system capable of moving 16 cubic meters of water every single second, enough to fill an Olympic pool in just over 2.5 minutes. The gradient of the channel is carefully fixed at a maximum of 2% to ensure water flows at the correct competition speed. The rapids, waves, and eddies are not random. They are created by large, specially shaped obstacles placed on the floor of the channel, and those obstacles are movable. Course designers can rearrange them between competition sessions to create entirely different challenges. After the Games, the Whitewater course will be handed over to Queensland's emergency services. Firefighters and flood rescue teams will use it to train swift water rescue in a fully controlled environment, practicing scenarios that are too dangerous to simulate in a real flood. The Olympics fund the infrastructure. The infrastructure saves lives for decades afterwards. The GABA, the end and the beginning. After the 2032 Games are over and the last medal has been won, one of Brisbane's most iconic venues will be demolished. The GABA, which has hosted cricket and football for more than a century, will be torn down entirely. But this is not simply destruction. It is the trigger for one of the largest urban renewal projects in the city's history. The entire 9-hectare site will be transformed into a new inner-city neighborhood, the Wollongabba Priority Development Area, with capacity for up to 24,000 residents. 20% of new housing will be social or affordable, ensuring nurses, teachers, and frontline workers can afford to live close to the city. The development is only viable because of 2 separate infrastructure projects happening underneath it, the Cross River Rail and Brisbane Metro, both of which will have major stations directly on site. Wollongabba will be one of the most transit-connected neighborhoods in Australia. Walkable, car-optional, and built around the principle that a successful city is measured by who can afford to live in it, not just who can afford a ticket. The question: the engineering across Brisbane's 2032 Olympic program is extraordinary by any measure. Ancient volcanic rock was blasted to build a stadium, a river manufactured from concrete and pumps, a 27-meter diving tower rising above Spring Hill, a temporary grandstand was built inside a permanent building, and a demolished icon became housing for 24,000 people. But the biggest question is the one that every Olympic city eventually faces. Does ambition survive contact with reality? Brisbane has made more promises than any host city in recent memory. Climate positive, community first, legacy guaranteed. The foundations are being laid right now. Whether they hold is something only time will answer. What do you think? Is Brisbane building the blueprint for the modern Olympics, or setting itself up for the biggest sporting hangover in Australian history? Like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments below.